I'm here today because Joe wanted me to show you guys how to use Fusion 360 because of the 3D printing project. It is a lot easier to use than Tinkercad, and it's like more precise. There's just a few extra steps to it. So the first thing I always do is I go over to that icon and I double click on it. And wait for it to open eventually. Okay, so now it's open and you can't even see. Okay, yeah, go away.
They'll minimize after, but
Okay, it's really annoying. So behind this thing, it says untitled because that means that you've got a project but you haven't saved it yet. So I decided the best object to make would be a hinge because it uses all of the basic stuff you need and actually moves. So you start off every program or model with a sketch. All this does is let you select a plane to work off of. And in this case, I want to start with a cube. So the first thing I do is I click the 2-point rectangle tool, and then I'll just draw a cube. And then I can finish sketch. So now I have a square, but I want it to be a cube, so I just make it longer. So I'll go to the extrude tool, and all it does is add depth to something. And from there, I can extend it. And I happen to know it was 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter, so I'll extrude it by 40 millimeter. And then I click OK. But say you didn't know how long the cube was, or you forgot or whatever, you can use the measure tool, and you just select whatever side you want. It'll tell you the measurement of that side, if that wasn't completely in the way. And I'll tell you the length is 40 millimeters. So now I have a cube. It doesn't really do anything though, so I want to put a hole through the center to make a pivot. So what I can do is create another sketch and select this face. So I click on that, and then I use the circle tool and select where I want the circle, and then I can drag it to size. And then I can finish sketch, and then rotate to a better perspective, and then I use the extrude tool again. From there, I select the circle only, and then I drag it through. In this case, it doesn't matter how long it is, just that it's longer than the cube, so it cuts all the way through. This is different than SolidWorks, because in SolidWorks, you have to select extrude to cut. In this case, it doesn't matter. So then you click OK. Now, it's not a very interesting cube, so to make it look cooler, I want to put rounded corners on it. To do that, I select the fillet tool, and I select the edges I want to be rounded. Now, sometimes it does weird things, but you drag it, and this time it worked, until you have a smooth, rounded edge. And then I click OK. So now I have a rounded half cube thing with a hole in it, but it's just one thing. And I could model it again on the other side, or since I'm lazy, I could use the move tool. What this does, oh, there's untitled, like, go away. Right there, it says untitled. So this will let me move this object in whatever way I want. But I want another object, so I can click create copy right there. There. So now I have another instance of this object. So now I can drag it over to the end of this, and then I can flip it over. And now I have basically a hinge. So this doesn't really give any clearance to move because it'll just be rubbing on the top. So what I can do is hit the extrude tool again and select this face. And then I can drag it up however far I want. Now, I don't want to use join because it'll combine all the objects together that are touching that point. And sometimes it just has a mind of its own and does it anyway. So I click new body because it's a lot safer. So now these are two separate objects. But to make them one object, I can use the combine tool. I can click on that and combine this with that. So now this is one piece and this is one piece, but there's really nothing from letting it stop it from sliding side to side. So what I can do is take the mirror tool and select this part and select a plane to mirror it on. In this case, this plane is the same as the origin plane here, so it doesn't matter which one I pick. So I'll just click here, and I do not want to click join because again, it'll do weird things. In this case, it might even throw an error at you. So don't do that. Click new body, and now I have hinge parts. And I'll just use the combine tool again and combine these two. So now I have a basic hinge, roughly, but these two are completely independent. There's nothing holding them together. So what I can do is create another sketch, click on this face, and create another rectangle. And what's really nice about Fusion compared to Tinkercad is instead of moving blocks, you can actually snap to the grid. So I've got the sketch on this face right here, and I can just select this corner, and it'll snap there. And I can snap up here. So now it's the perfect width and attached to that corner. So then I can finish the sketch, hit the extrude tool, and I can click here and how far I want to go. And in this case, join is fine because it's not touching the center thing at all. So now I can click join. And in case I'm worried that it's now one piece, I can select the move tool again. It'll show the individual parts. So now I have this, but there's nothing for it to pivot around. It's just a hole for something to go in. So what I can do is create another sketch, select this face, and I could draw a circle in here and just make it a little bit undersized because in 3D printing, you have to give tolerances so things don't just bind or aren't one piece. Another way you can do it is you can use this offset tool. So on any surface, you can select the surface, or not sure exactly, this curve, and you can offset it by an amount. So here, it would make it larger. So whenever you see it larger or in the opposite direction that you want, you hit minus and whatever amount. And in this case, I want to go 0.5 millimeter or 1/4 millimeter offset because that'll let it move freely. 0.5. And then I hit OK. And then from there, I have a smaller circle. So I click Finish Sketch, and then Extrude again. Rotate this to be a better perspective. And then I send this through, and if I select on this face, I can drag it through, or I guess I could just click on that, but so in this case, I'll just click on that. And then now I have a hinge pin, but there's nothing locking it in place. So one thing you could do is click the extrude tool again, extend it out a little bit. And in this case, the join, sorry, I say that a lot. Here, the join tool is fine because it's only touching that again. So I can click OK, and then I can create a sketch off the origin, or off that plane. And then I can create a circle within this pin. And then I can finish sketch again. And I can extrude that circle. And because this is a curved surface, I don't have to click, I can click straight through it if I want to. And for some reason I extruded. So the problem here is only extruding out of the one side. So I could hit OK here, and then it'll just extrude again out the other side. Or you can click here and set, can you see that? You can set symmetric or two-side if you want a variable cut. I clicked two-side. You click symmetric, and it'll cut an even amount on the other side. So then you've got OK. And then now you have a pin that you can put through there, and it'll lock the hinge pin in place. And now that's only on the one side, so we can mirror this again. You could, but at that point, printing becomes a little weird. This is just kind of a simple thing, but in this case, join is fine because it's only mirroring one part, so you don't have to worry about it freaking out. So you click OK, and now you have a hinge. but it looks really boring. So similar to the fillet tool, you have the chamfer tool. And all this does is takes a corner and it puts a flat edge on it. So what I can do is I can click on this face and that face, and I can drag this in. Now, with this tool and the fillet tool, you got to be careful because it can throw errors. Like if I drag this way too far, it'll start yelling at me like that. Because you're trying to move it, you're adjusting the geometry beyond the space of the geometry, if that makes sense. So errors are not fun. So say I wanted this chamfer here to extend longer. You can select here to distance, and you can extend the chamfer further. And again, it throws errors because it's mad. But I like to stick with equal distance because it doesn't really change much and it throws less errors. And sometimes it'll even throw, like you can do it on one side and it'll not match the other side because it's a computer. It's like, okay, and now I have a slightly nicer looking hinge. So this is pretty much all you need, but Joe also wanted me to show you how to make threads. So I'll create a new design. And so a thread is basically a cylinder with threads cutting into it, like a bolt or something. Now I could just create a sketch with a circle and just extrude that again. Or there's a funner tool for that. I select the plane and I draw a rectangle. And then I can finish the sketch again and I click revolve. This is very similar to Calc 2. Any of you have taken that, where you take a shape and you revolve it around an axis and then you can determine the volume of that. So you select that.
No,
Yeah, up to.
okay.
So then you select whatever part you want to revolve around. In this case, I want to revolve it around here or this axis. So I click on that, and now I have a circle.
Dude, that's
And this is shorter than I want it to be, so I can still extrude
Dan told you
and then
guys,
send this up.
it's a rectangle.
Now,
Circle was a polar rectangle.
so now, how would you think about creating threads? It sounds super complicated, right? The nice thing about Fusion is it does all the work for you with the thread tool.
Fuck yeah.
So you click on this, you click modeled, and there's threads. And you can set it right hand, left hand, whatever diameter you
can
want.
Set the friggin'
So I can make it
wait.
M10.
Yeah, that's what I want, is to be able to
Scheme.
select the designator.
Yeah, you can also flip it. You can change the type of thread, the thread pitch.
Oh, you
Yeah.
can do counter threaded, so you can do left hand threads.
Yes, right hand, left hand.
Beautiful.
That's super cool, but it has a set amount of threads, so you can't change the thread. If you have a custom pitch, like it can't do 11 threads per inch. So like certain things, it does have its limitations. So let's say I'll go back to, let's do 7. So now it's a really, really long thread. So okay, I have a thread, but you have no way of applying torque to this. So usually you want like a bolt head. So you can create a sketch off the top, and then you can use the line tool. The square tool, if you're drawing squares or rectangles, use a 2-point rectangle. It's a lot easier. But for anything like hexagons, I like to just take a line and draw it way longer than I need. And from here, I can use a circular pattern tool, select the line you want, or whatever you want to be revolved or set in a pattern. And then I select the origin or the point you want revolved around, and that creates 3. Or if I do 4, I have a square that took a lot more work. Or in this case, I want a hexagon, I can do 6. And it doesn't matter that there's extras, you can always trim those later, or you can ignore them entirely, finish the sketch, select this part and this part, and send it upwards. And then you can click join because the only other piece in here. Now, this looks pretty sharp and I wouldn't want to touch that. Not that 3D printing has that problem. So you can click chamfer and select all of these faces. And then you can drag it in. But that looks awful because it's too much. So the nice thing about this is it gives you the little number pad. So I can just enter like 1. Yeah. So now I've got a chamfered bolt, but it doesn't do anything because it's got nothing to thread into. So I want to make a nut. So I'll create a sketch again on that XY axis, I guess, or XY plane. And then I'll just do that again. So in this case, M7 bolts, I'll just draw 10 because it doesn't matter. And then I'll draw another line and do another circular pattern. Select where I want to revolve around. I could click here or the center point, it doesn't matter. And select 6 again. And now I have another hex nut or hex shape. So now I can extrude this. And now I have a nut with no threads in it. So I can use the create thread tool again, select this face, and it'll move it to whatever diameter you need to. Now, that's M10, this is M8. So I can do that. Or maybe that's M7.
The bolt was M7.
It was M7, okay. So 7mm. And you notice the pitch is 1 millimeter pitch. So 1 millimeter between each thread. For 3D printing, or for normally this, like machining, they could hit that tolerance. For 3D printing, I've noticed you have to step it up by 1 millimeter or 2. So in this case, I'd move it up to 8mm and set the pitch to be the same, and that would work fine. So now we have a bolt and a nut that are mostly compatible for 3D printing. So from here, I can hit the save tool, and then I can call it bolt and nut or something along those lines. So now this is saved into my computer so I can access it later, but it's just 2 objects, you can't print it. So what you can do is you can click on bodies and it'll give you a list of what's in here. So say I want to print this bolt, I can hover over the bolt and it'll tell me that it is body 1. So now I can scroll over here and right click on this, save as mesh, and it'll tell me what format you want. If you're doing this for a 3D printing project, you absolutely need to do 3MF or STL. It won't recognize anything else. So just that one's fine. And if you do refinement settings, it'll tell you how precise it is. I like to do high because if you do medium or low, it'll have lower tolerances and not work as well. So click high and then okay. And then you can name that individual part. So in this case, bolt. So it's actually M7 bolt in this case. And then I can click enter. So now all I need to do to print that is take that to Melissa, take that individual file to Melissa or someone in the print lab and they can print that for you. Otherwise, you can just have Melissa help you or someone over there help you turn that into an STL 3MF file. That's pretty much all you need to know. Do you have any questions?
So when we did the nut and bolt, did it, I noticed you did like the extra millimeter, that's between threads. Did that do a tolerance so that like the bolt will not well, and you have the tolerance between the threads, but what about the tolerance for like the diameter of the nut offset?
That's what I did. I offset the threads and everything by 1 millimeter. Yeah, the reason
Yeah, so an M7 bolt is 7 millimeters in diameter.
Oh,
An
yes.
M8 bolt is 8 millimeters in diameter, so you kept the thread pitch the same, but changed
I just
the depth.
offset the diameter. And the reason I do that is the layer line or there's every 3D print has a seam. So there's a really rough, awful looking section that causes issues and interference. So all it does is just compensate for that seam. Now, another thing to think about is what if I made a mistake and I don't like it? I can always use the undo thread up here and then it'll be gone. I can always redo it. Or I can right click on this and edit it. So I can change everything in here again, including left hand. All it does is just change what happens. But you got to be careful depending on how far back you do that, because that could break your entire design. You have to undo that edit.
If you can, is that little play button down there in the bottom left? If you push that, it'll actually just replay the movie of how you built everything.
Yes, Carmen actually showed me that. I didn't know that.
Oh, that's hella cool. That's convenient, because then you
Yes.
can later be like, how the fuck did I do this?
Yes.
And then you can just watch a little movie of your smarter past self sorting it out.
Yeah. So same with this one. I can click on here and hit play. And it'll do the same thing.
How do you save it so that it keeps that the memory of how it was made?
It's saved with this file no matter what, as long as you save the file. Like this one's also not saved. But if I do save class hinge or whatever you call it, now it's saved to the computer. If you open this file ever again, you'll always have access to that animation.
The Fusion 360 file type basically is a series of the things you did to make the shape.
Yes.
It's not actually the shape.
Yeah. Everything down here is all the step. I'm blocking projector. Everything down here is the steps you took to get there. You can click on them at any time. You can edit them at any time. The computer might scream at you because it messes up something, but you can still do it. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need. I don't use much more than this on a daily basis. Yes.
So if you had like both of those two tabs and just wanted to like put them together, how do you can you do that?
That is a good question. It depends if you can not do it both ways. You can only import one into the other. You cannot import that in here and then import something from here into there. That's called circular importation, and that's bad. But say I want that thread in here so I can have the bolt. So you select this button called Insert Derive. You click on that, and you select what file you want, and that's bolt and nut. So this is also a problem if you make too many things. You have to scroll through all of them.
You need to start making different projects.
Yesterday, today. I made practice ones. So now you can select what objects you want to import. So say you want both of these, you select both, and you can place the objects at the origin. And what that does is put them centered inside your model. Or you can just click OK and they'll be wherever they were. So OK. And now you've got a bolt very inconveniently in the center of your thing. And you can move them, the bolts and nuts there. This is another thing. You can adjust your select so it can be a window, so like a rectangle where you drag it like this. Or it can be a lot of really other annoying versions of the same thing. Like freeform selection, you have to do that madness. So I like to do window because it's more predictable. So the nut's here, but I can't really see it that well. So I can, no, I said I wanted window. So I can do that, and now I've got both. And now you can move them out of the way or whatever. Another thing you can do is you can use the align tool here. And I could say select that face. I could select the center of this. And it'll put it there. And you can flip it over if you want. So now this is perfectly centered on that face. It didn't combine it at all. It just put it in a nice position. That makes sense?
Cool.
Anything else?
And it's free 99.
Yes. All you have to do is enter that you are a student, what college or school you're going for, or that you're in, what day you're graduating, or what month and year you're graduating. And it said you need a student ID or something, like you need a picture student ID or a transcript or something. But it's not that hard.